Hello everybody and welcome back. This is Keep It Real. This is episode 10 of Begins Youth.
I'm just stunned. There's so much to unpack in this episode.
Well, there's always so much to unpack on all these episodes.
Flashback. This time we are following Ju-won again. It's a continuation of his previous flashback where we fill in a lot of the gaps. In the previous flashback, he was basically sent a picture of Sayan and told to stop him and stall him for a while. Now in this flashback, we discover that it's the same person that spoke to Haru and spoke to Jae-ha, and we still don't know who it is, but they basically told him to keep Sayan busy. And we also get a little flashback where Ju-won's basically thinking about better times with his family and stuff like that. This episode starts off where the last one left off. We just find out that it was Haru that slit his wrist and is in the hospital. We see his parents
once again lying, and the church calls them up and asks the parents, are you guys going to come over for something? And the father is saying, oh no, we're busy. Not telling the truth about his son is in a hospital.
We also find out what happens with Sayan's position in the school. They end up deciding that he's going to have to transfer. He's going to be suspended until he has to transfer to a different school, so that entire incident won't go on his record or anything. Anyway, because Haru's in the hospital, he's not answering any of Hosu's texts, and he has no idea what's going on because after they split up that day, he's basically been radio silent. Haru's mom ends up finding Hosu and telling him that Haru's in the hospital and he's not speaking to anyone, and she brings Hosu to the hospital hoping that Haru will open up to him. Anyway, at the hospital, Hosu and Haru talk, and Haru ends up telling Hosu about everything that happened since when he was a little kid, how he saw that guy, I guess, torturing another little kid by the Arboretum, and how he's basically been hiding from this monster. That monster. He calls him a monster, yeah. He calls him a monster for years now.
End of last episode, Haru meets up with that monster guy, and they cut, and we didn't know what was going on. In this episode, the monster actually confronts Haru and says, you think that I am the monster, but really, I am not the monster. We were just playing a long game of hide and seek, and you think I was it. I'm not it. You're it now. And now
he's always been it.
You have always been it. He was waiting for Haru to actually turn him in since he was a little kid. He's been waiting all 9 years, but he never turned him in because he was stalking him throughout his childhood, and he
trying to figure out exactly why he never turned him in the first place.
So he found out that it was his parents that was controlling him, and he tells them, you think I'm the monster? No, your parents are the real monsters. And then Haru, a light flashes in his head. He goes, yeah, my parents
are bad people. Yeah. They've been controlling my entire life.
Yes. And so basically that's when he goes home, and he says the only way I can take care of the new monsters is to end his life. So to end the story about the original attacker, he actually turns himself in.
So basically Haru's seeing it that hide and seek is over, but he started a new hide and seek with his parents, so he's basically just bunkering down in the hospital. Hosu immediately, because it's not possible, he blames the crazy monster dude, saying it's actually his fault, and Haru explains that that's not the way it is, and that's when he reveals to Hosu that the monster was actually the guy that Hosu recommended Haru go visit, and after that, Hosu sort of starts to blame himself for everything that Haru went through, and as he's leaving, he ends up passing out on the bridge. Ju-won, after having a falling out with Dogun in the last episode, ends up hanging out with the biker gang that Dogun's brother did in the past. One of the guys in the gang ends up hitting Ju-won's father over the head with his bike helmet because he saw him terrorizing Ju-won's older sister. Ju-won ends up confronting his father about his abuse. He demands that he apologizes for all that he does, and all of this only just serves to anger Ju-won's father. And then we just cut to Ju-won walking outside, calling his sister and saying that, don't come back, just imagine that dad's never existed. So the redevelopment is still a constant thing in this town, and people are protesting it. Dad
Juan's dad's not a good person.
A big faker, liar politician, and he's basically trying to butter up the townspeople who are protesting the redevelopment. And it ends up working, of course, and Juan's watching this, and he's
disgusted,
putting together that I've been telling these lies to my friends too. I'm just as bad as my father. On top of that, Juan's father is talking about the container area where Dogun lives, that Dogun's boss is basically keeping that area, and they're, like, the one, like, stronghold that they haven't been able to get by yet. Juan overhears all of this, and he's like, that's where Dogun lives, and he's really worried about him, but, Juan's father's secretary ends up telling him that he'll make sure that Dogun stays safe and all that stuff, but Juan makes sure to call Dogun and tell him, like, don't stay in the container. Like, if you can, just sleep at home now. Don't be there. Yeah, they had another celebration for the charity foundation, and the principal ends up introducing Dogun to Juan's father, and they spend the entire night, like, being, like, uppity and all that stuff. They go back late at night, and they drive directly to Dogun's container and drop him off there. Once they drop him off, they're like, okay, he's in there, he's in the container, now is go time, let's
burn him out.
Blow up the container. Juan ends up finding out that his father is planning to blow up the container because of Juan's father's secretary, and Juan basically tries to call Dogun, but he's not picking up, so he decides to take his bike and bike all the way to the container. At a street, Dogun finally picks up the call, and he's able to basically tell him that you need to get out of the container. They're going to, like, set a fire. It's dangerous. As soon as he says, as soon as he says fire,
he gets hit by a car.
He almost gets hit by a car, and his phone breaks, and he doesn't know if Dogun actually got out or not, so he's panicking and freaking out. So he runs, injured, to the container, and as soon as he gets there, the container explodes. And
right in his face.
Right in his face, and he flips out. He's panicking and freaking out, and he's about to run into the container, but he's grabbed by Juwon and Dogun to pull him away, saying that, and then Dogun goes, I'm okay, I'm fine, I got out because you told me to get out. And Juan finally just is in relief, and he cries a little. They talk about how Juan actually knew about all this stuff, and Juwon basically yells at Juan for
confronts him, because it's true.
Never
it's like,
telling them about
it's like,
this stuff.
Like,
even though Juwon is very upset about all of this, Dogun doesn't blame Juan at all because he's still alive, and it's not his fault.
It's amazing.
But Juan still just feels so very bad and very guilty for everything that happened. He ends up reporting about the incident and what happened to all major news broadcasts and sites. After that, he tells his father that he doesn't want to be like him, and he's really scared of becoming like him, and he wants to go back to America. At the very end of the episode, we see Saiyan packing up to transfer to this new school, and he has, like, ashes on his hands.
Burn marks.
And we find out that he ended up burning all of the evidence that he's been gathering to, like, figure out what happened to his mother all those years ago. Basically putting to rest, like, his whole, like, sleuthing. At the very end, our very last scene, we see Jaeha walking back into the Saiyan's family home again, and he finds the bucket of things that Saiyan burnt.
The ashes of the burnt items.
And he reaches inside and he pulls out the key
that
says
car.
number 8. We're thinking this entire time, what's the key for? What does the key open? And I was like, what if it goes to the motel? I'm not going to say more than that. It's a motel key. Any people that know the BTS storyline...
It's gonna next 2 episodes. It's gonna be it.
Yeah, I think it is gonna be it.
It's gonna be it. And next 2 episodes, if everyone knows the storyline, we know what's gonna happen. And if they play it right, it's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be crazy.
It's either gonna be really good or it's gonna be real bad.
Because
we are guessing that with the next episode, they're going to time jump a year with Juan saying that he's gonna be going back to America, Saiyan basically transferring, and based off of what we know from the notes, they basically don't touch base with one another as a friend group for like a year, and then they come back together after that.
Once again, I just hope they do it right, and there's 2 ways of looking at it. Like
so far, they've been doing it right, so I'm not really too worried.
You could do it right both ways. You could time jump 1 year later, which it works, because then everyone knows the storyline with that, or you could stick with this storyline, but it has to happen. he's gonna have to. Juan's character has to start having his time loop.
Thank you for watching today's video. Don't forget to go down below in the comments and tell us what you thought about episode 10. While you're at it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share to others, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.